Mohammed Hijab, in a state of total delusion about the preservation of the Quran, had Sheikh Yasser Qadi on a live stream and tried to get the good Sheikh to say that there's only one Quran, perfectly preserved, right down to the letter. Instead of affirming Hijab's delusions, however, Dr. Qadi absolutely destroyed the myth of perfect preservation, and Muslims around the world have been blaming Hijab and Dr. Qadi for crushing their confidence in the Quran.
This was not something I brought up in public, and I would never bring it up in public. And I don't think it is wise to bring it up in public. Anyway, I don't want to get into that issue.
Okay, fine.
Why do I not want to get to that issue? Here's the point. These issues should only be discussed amongst people who know. And it's very clear to you and to every single very advanced student and specialist that the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm going to say. The standard narrative does not answer some very pressing questions. Okay? This is what I'm going to say. And
but I think here we
wait, let me finish this, Mohammed, because this is a very important point. I'll let you let me finish this. And by the way, if you are following online media and articles and whatnot, this is no longer hidden news. More and more professors and academics are writing stuff, and it's being publicized on Twitter in the last 2-3 years. I have had at least, I'd say, 12 people tweet at me like specific articles like, how do you answer this? And, about ulum al-Quran, about qira'at, about makhtutat, about issues, These are now well known within the Western Academy, that they're bringing forth issues. Their level of now knowledge is leaps and bounds above what it used to be, 100 years ago, And by and large, our ulama in the Eastern world are not aware, by and large, of what's going on in the Western side of things. This is something all of us that are in academia fully acknowledge.
Let me ask you one question to try and make this as specific as possible. I think if I were to give you a blank mushaf, and tell you to write what is munazzal verbatim from Allah into that mushaf with no human interference, would you write something which corresponds?
It's not an easy answer. It's not an easy yes or no. It is enough for the Muslim to believe that the
I think
Quran
this should be an easy yes or no, though. Yes, Khadi. I have to.
Okay, very, very well. So, Mohammed, after we get off this phone call, me and you, let's have a number of discussions. No problem. I'm very open with advanced students. But these issues should not... Look, it is Kalamullah, what is going to be written. It is Kalamullah. It is
what would you write?
You're pushing me. And I'm saying it's not hikmah to... Listen, I have a condition. Like I said, everything I say is going to be factual. If I want
Hijab has been trying to redeem himself ever since, but he's not very wise in his tactics. Apart from screaming at Muslims and telling them they're weak if they don't mindlessly accept the standard narrative about the Quran, he's gone off the deep end with insults and abuse. Hijab started sending the apostate prophet messages telling him that he should kill himself. Then Hijab showed up in the chat while we were doing a live stream and began posting disgusting comments, telling us to engage in perverted sexual practices that many people didn't understand until they looked them up, because unlike Sapiens Institute representative Mohammed Hijab, they're not experts in bondage and fetish porn.
Are you sick in the mind? Are you that mentally enslaved and intellectually subservient and intellectually molested and ideologically molested? How can you live yourself? You're a dejected individual. Boy! You're nothing, boy! You're finished already! Dirty individual this is.
Disgusting.
You are, Alek, dirty individual, sickening human being. You're finished, boy! You're finished! You're finished!
All of you. And I know you're listening to me and shaking. You need to use the toilet now, I know you do. Now listen, Khalas, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Listen carefully to all those people out there, the Christians. How dare you talk about preservation? It actually makes me angry. Listen to what he said, not a stupid running around the street, speaker's corner and talking nonsense. No chain, don't speak to me. Don't speak about Islam. Don't ever open your mouth about Islam again. Wallahi, don't open your mouth. Don't ever open your mouth. You have no chain. And a lot of you are losing faith, and you shouldn't. Aqsumu billah al-azim. I know the Christians are on this chat. Lose faith. I tell you, lose faith. It's better for you. Because this is a nonsense. You have no chain of narration. No chain. And you're comparing with all audacity because of the ignorance of the Muslim community and the weakness of the leaders. You are comparing your method of preservation with us. Uqsum billah, you have deceived and self-deluded. Dunning-Kruger effect, you jokers, you imbeciles. How dare you talk about the Quran, you imbecilic individuals. Sahaba were going to beat each other up because they didn't know. Is this one saying it? Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. And these weak Muslims in the West, sending me emails and this, I'm losing my faith and I'm a hafiz, I'm losing, get the hell out. You are never a strong believer in the first place, you weakling. You're a weakling because you don't know your tradition. You're sitting there watching Netflix and you don't read the books of Islam. That's why you are where you are. That's why you are where you are, you imbecile. It's our fault.
He's having a mental breakdown. I have actually offered to pay for a shrink for him. He's losing it. He thinks the people are shaking listening to him. People we're laughing.
Following his tirade about golden showers, Hijab launched a campaign against the wives of critics of Islam. His tweets about women are saturated with imagery of rape and torture. For instance, here's one of Hijab's tweets about the apostate prophet's wife, Mrs. Apostate. When these anti-Muslim attention whore Islamophobes need to get on their knees in intellectual submission before they are whipped by freedom of speech by the Twitter Muslims, and they reluctantly open their mouth in protestation and find they have been defiled by the truth. Notice the imagery. Get on their knees, submission, whipped by Muslims, open their mouth to find they have been defiled. It would be illegal to post a threat about forcing the apostate prophet's wife to her knees, whipping her, and defiling her, so Hijab adds some words. Hijab doesn't try to hide the fact that he's crafting these messages to make sure they're legal. Indeed, he tells his followers to join his campaign of abuse, but he warns them to make sure that their harassment doesn't break the law. I call upon all of the Muslim Twitter soldiers to work within the full scope of the law to create maximum damage to the cause of, that's his name for the apostate prophet, and his public figure with, that's his name for Mrs. Apostate. They are demoralized and on the ropes. Do not let the weak-minded Muslims deter you. Finish them. So, Hijab isn't simply using imagery of rape and torture in his campaign of online abuse against women. He's encouraging his followers to do the same. He's trying to shut down criticism of Muhammad and the Quran by targeting the families of critics of Islam. He thinks that if he showers women with abuse and veiled threats of rape and torture, their husbands will eventually back down. Instead of backing down, however, some husbands decided to nip this in the bud by letting Hijab know that if he wants to escalate by insulting and abusing women, critics of Islam can simply escalate in return by insulting and abusing the Quran. And that's when Muhammad Hijab tried to pretend that he has the moral high ground here. He wrote, "The difference between us and you is this. We disrespect Islamophobes like you who disrespect our community. You disrespect our religion and our community. Quite frankly, I have never and would never gratuitously insult any sacred symbol in any religion, even though I can legally." Unlike us, Hijab has never and would never gratuitously insult any sacred symbol in any religion. He'll lie, he'll cheat, he'll heap abuse on women and encourage others to do so. He'll tell people to kill themselves. He'll babble about golden showers, but unlike us, he would never gratuitously insult any sacred symbol in any religion. What a great man. He's clearly claiming that it's immoral to gratuitously insult the sacred symbols of other religions. Now, we all know how Islam works. When Muslims are in the minority, it's wrong to insult other people's religions. But as soon as they're in the majority, we're destroying your statues and converting your churches and temples into mosques. But let's ignore most of Islamic history because hijab might say, well, those were just bad Muslims who were smashing those Hindu idols and sprinkling the pieces in front of the mosques so that Muslims would trample them regularly. Let's go back to the first generation of Muslims and see how they compare to Muhammad hijab. Obviously, since it's immoral to insult the sacred symbols of other religions, the Prophet Muhammad must have been extremely respectful. The History of At-Tabari, Volume 6, page 93. The messenger of God, Muhammad, proclaimed God's message openly and declared Islam publicly to his fellow tribesmen. When he did so, they did not withdraw from him or reject him in any way, as far as I have heard, until he spoke of their gods and denounced them. Notice that the pagans of Mecca didn't have any problem with Muhammad preaching Islam until he started denouncing their gods. But according to hijab, it's immoral to insult other people's sacred symbols, so maybe Muhammad was denouncing them in a non-insulting fashion. A little later in At-Tabari, page 101, the pagans complain about Muhammad's religious intolerance. They say, "We have never seen the like of what we have endured from this man. He has derided our traditional values, abused our forefathers, reviled our religion, caused division among us, and insulted our gods. We have endured a great deal from him." Muhammad reviled their religion and insulted their gods, the very things that hijab says no good person would ever do. Since Muhammad is the pattern of conduct in Islam, it should come as no surprise that his companions followed his example by insulting the sacred symbols of the pagans. In the passage we're about to read, a pagan named Urwa points out that there are only two possible outcomes for Muhammad in his war against his own tribe, the Quraysh. If Muhammad is victorious over the Quraysh, he'll be remembered as a man who slaughtered his own tribesmen. If the Quraysh are victorious over him, his followers will abandon him. Either way, Muhammad loses, so he should end his war against the Quraysh. Not a bad argument, but watch how Abu Bakr, Muhammad's closest companion and the first of the rightly guided caliphs, responds to Urwa. The History of At-Tabari, Volume 8, page 76. Urwa went to the Prophet and began speaking to him. The Prophet spoke as he had spoken to Budail. Then Urwa said, "Muhammad, tell me, if you extirpate, if you completely destroy your tribesmen, have you ever heard of any of the Arabs who destroyed his own race before you? And if the contrary comes to pass, by God, I see both prominent people and rabble who are likely to flee and leave you." Abu Bakr said, "Go suck the clitoris of Alat." Alat was a goddess worshipped by Urwa. So Abu Bakr answers Urwa's entirely reasonable call for peace with an extraordinarily offensive insult against Urwa's religious beliefs. Go perform oral sex on your goddess, Urwa. This is how one of the greatest Muslims ever responded to a pagan in the presence of Muhammad himself. Now, if I were to say, "Hey, Muhammad hijab, why don't you go suck your prophet's penis?" Or, "Hey, Ali Dawa, why don't you go give oral to Allah?" they would immediately condemn me and start begging Christians to rebuke me. But in doing so, they would actually be condemning their own prophet and his companions. Interestingly, Muhammad hijab knows about Abu Bakr telling Urwa to go suck Alat's clitoris because hijab uses this story to justify his own abusive language towards non-Muslims. And yet somehow hijab still insists that it's immoral to insult the sacred symbols of another religion. The Muslims eventually defeated the pagans of Mecca, and that's when Muhammad got to demonstrate how to show respect towards the beliefs of others. There were 360 idols at the Kaaba. Remember, according to hijab, it's completely immoral to insult the sacred symbols of other groups. Sahih al-Bukhari, 2478. Narrated Abdullah bin Masud, the Prophet entered Mecca, and at that time there were 360 idols around the Kaaba. He started stabbing the idols with a stick he had in his hand. Muhammad went around stabbing the idols. He desecrated them. And what did Muhammad and his followers do after that? They smashed the idols to pieces. Why? Because that's what Muhammad was sent to do. In Sahih Muslim, 1930, Muhammad declares that he was sent to break the idols. What will the Islamic Jesus do when he returns? Sahih Muslim, 389, he will break the cross. But what is Muhammad Hijab's boast? I have never and would never gratuitously insult any sacred symbol in any religion, even though I can legally. Hijab condemns us for insulting the sacred symbols of his religion. He says that he would never do something so evil, so vile, so morally reprehensible. So Muhammad Hijab is better than Abu Bakr, right? And he's better than the Islamic Jesus, right? And he's better than his own prophet, right? And since Allah declares in Surah 33, verse 21 of the Quran, that Muhammad is an excellent pattern of conduct, while Hijab is saying that Muhammad is a terrible pattern of conduct because he insulted people's gods and goddesses, Hijab is claiming to be better than Allah, isn't he? In Surah 4, verse 65 of the Quran, but know, by your Lord, they can have no faith until they make you, O Muhammad, judge in all disputes between them and find in themselves no resistance against your decisions and accept them with full submission. Islam means submission. According to Allah, you submit to Him by submitting to Muhammad. You have no real Islamic faith until you find in yourself no resistance against Muhammad's decisions. But Muhammad is the breaker of idols, and Muslims today tell me that it's wrong and immoral to insult the sacred symbols of other religions. What does this mean? It means that Muslims like Muhammad Hijab are actually apostates. They've condemned their own God and their own prophet. Since they haven't fully accepted all of Muhammad's decisions, since they find within themselves resistance against Muhammad's decisions, they have no real Islamic faith. So guess what, Muhammad Hijab? You and I are actually on the same side here. We're united in condemning your prophet. We're united in condemning your God. We're united in condemning your book. We're not united on whatever creepy golden showers nonsense you're into. We're not united on defiling women and such, but at least we agree that Muhammad was a horrible, horrible person. As an ex-Muslim, you probably now despise not only your former prophet, but also his book. Since you condemn your prophet, you'll obviously want to condemn his book as well. But we've seen, however, that unlike your former prophet, you would never insult the sacred symbol of any religion. You're too good for that. So you want to insult the Quran, but you can't. Don't worry, though. I'll take care of that part for you. I'm David Wood, breaker of false prophets, eater of demonic books. I gave you 4 days with no provocation whatsoever. I gave you time to ponder your mistakes, and you still didn't take down your tweets attacking women. A year from now, you'll be looking back at your decision to abuse women on Twitter as the greatest mistake you ever made. And given your interview with Sheikh Yasser Qadhi, that's saying something.